Hello Wastecasters, I've decided to start my vlog again. I'm now in Signet Qstoke. I've been here since about August. I'm in room 15 and I recently had a grievance regarding a nurse who initially refused to show me a photo identification and then after that showed me a photo identification where she defaced her second name. So I couldn't make a complaint to the CQC, to the Nursing and Midwifery Council, to the police, should I need to, not that I do. She's been very nice and polite and I've got no problem with the nurse other than that we'd had a small dispute where she'd refused to give me some medication. I've spoken to an independent mental health advocate who, in my opinion, hasn't really supported me very well. So what I'm going to do is show you some emails that I sent to the hospital to complain, to the Nursing and Midwifery Council and to a mental health advocate, because I don't think they've done a very good job. And what I really like is if people could share, comment, post and like and subscribe obviously, so that I can get a better understanding of my legal rights on this. So what I'm going to do is just pop this camera into the corner of the screen. Oops. There we are, them again. So I'll just snap this to the corner. The trackpad on this laptop's a bit weird. There we go. And then I'll walk you through some files. So I've just downloaded them from Gmail, converted them into JPEGs and redacted them so that no one's personal details are shown. So here's an email that I sent the other day, which I'll read to you. It says, "Hello, I'm currently detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act at Signet Qstoke. Following a disagreement with, I presume, an RMN who refused to treat me, I requested to see photocard ID. After initially refusing on the grounds that, as was claimed, only an employer has the right to see photocard ID badges, I was shown a short time later a badge with a small sticker obscuring the surname. This doesn't seem right to me. I'd like to make a formal complaint about the conduct of the RMN to NMC, both on the grounds that I've been refused treatment resulting in exacerbated symptoms and that the nurse in question has repeatedly refused to confirm either their qualified registration to practice or even their name. Paradoxically, I'm unable to identify the person I'd like to make a complaint about, as I only know their first name and don't have an NMC PIN either, as this was also refused. There is, to my knowledge, a second staff member with the same name. I'm unclear on the laws, regulatory guidance or policy, hospital or NMC, surrounding the provision and obligation to display when requested by a patient photocard ID. However, it would seem more than a little absurd that IDs produced bearing a surname are permitted to have it then obscured by a sticker, as was the case in this instance, or that any nurse in an inpatient setting has the right, as was claimed, to remain anonymous by refusing to display on request a component of contractually prescribed uniform. I've CC'd in ward manager Sophie in order that the exchange I had with the nurse in the doorway of Hayward ward office commencing at around 4:30 AM on the 3rd of March 2025 can be verified using CCTV, as this is the only corroborating evidence available in this instance. If anyone could explain to me how it's feasible, proportionate, rational, logical or indeed legal for a nurse who's both responsible for my safety and issued with, as is every single nurse in the UK, a photocard ID, to both deface the card rendering it effectively useless and to refuse to display it on request, it would be greatly appreciated. This impasse has made me feel distressed and unsafe and presents to me as both suspicious and negligent. I welcome any guidance available regarding this incident, including CCTV evidence, along with signposting to any other relevant organisation should it transpire that this constitutes a legal dispute rather than a civil one. I'd like the CCTV footage of both my initial request for PRN medication and the subsequent presentation of the defaced photocard card ID a short time later in the corridor directly outside the ward office provided by email in order that it can be submitted to the Nursing and Midwifery Council to substantiate my complaint. I'd also request that, if provided for by either Signet policy or other relevant law or regulations, the full name of the nurse I interacted with just after 4:30 a.m. on the 3rd of March 2025 to be provided in order that I can pursue a complaint with the NMC. Let's make it a bit bigger so we can see the rest. I'd also like to request from Signet Stoke a copy of my medical legal scrutiny checklist in printed format in order to verify that I'm being lawfully detained at the premises. I then got an email back. I forwarded it to inquiries at CQC, and then got an email back from the CQC, and eventually the Advocacy People, who I'd CC'd into the email. Their email read, "We're not able to answer all your questions, but as you're under section, we can help you with issues relating to your care and treatment while under the section, which can include raising concerns about staff. I've added a case to our database for a mental health advocate to come visit you within the next few days. I can see you've mentioned Hayward Ward. Is this the ward you're currently on?" I got back to them, I think, and I said, "Hello, yes, I'm in room 15 on Hayward Ward." There's a fairly prescriptive set of regulations set out on the CQC website, specifically regulations 19, 20 and 9, which are broadly relevant with reference to defaced ID badges and the refusal to display one in the first instance. I know because I'd phoned up and I'd spoken to CQC on the phone. I'm confident in making a complaint without advocacy to support me. However, that what would be helpful is reinforcement of regulations and my rights as a patient detained under section with reference to what might be medical fraud, negligence or gross misconduct. This would actually be more valuable to me if it could be corroborated and confirmed in writing, as Signet Stoke are also refusing me the right to take voice notes of consultations, so even in the event that you or one of your team is able to verify that a breach of regulation, policy or law has taken place during a ward round, for instance, I've no way to evidence any verbal consultation to, for example, the Health and Parliamentary Services Ombudsman, in a court of law or even to the police. If we could conduct our initial consultation via email, that would be better for me, as this way I have something of substance to refer to and utilise to reinforce my position. This would also be more cost effective and less time consuming. Having done a little reading after a poor night's sleep, I've gleaned the basics of the CQC's stance on the issue, so I have every confidence your team should be able to identify what is and isn't considered acceptable with regards to this incident, and look forward to gaining some binary support with enforcement going forward via email. However, if a member of your team would like to visit, spelt "you're wrong," you're welcome to attend whenever is good for you. So they turned up pretty much straight away. This is saying, I actually had a meeting with a chap named Alan, I've redacted his name there, yesterday. Can you confirm whether he's a member of your team, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of irrelevant. But the email that I got from them is more relevant, because I don't think it was very good. I didn't really rate it very much. You'll see why if my battery doesn't die before I finish making this email, which I hope it doesn't. Alan emails JPEGs. So this is the email that I got from Alan at the Advocacy People. He's a very polite guy. I took a recording of our meeting, which I might post on YouTube in a bit. But anyway, it says, "Hi Brodie, following our conversation yesterday, I've looked up the CQC regulations referred to. Regulation 20, the duty of candour. I've only encountered this as part of the response to serious incidents, for example, injury in hospital care, a incident they define as a notable safety incident, where a duty of candour report is intended as part of the learning process to be transparent in what took place and ensure shortcomings are learnt from, as opposed to a mindset of avoiding blame and denial. Whilst this regulation is focused on being open and transparent, it doesn't appear to be designed to cover obscured ID badges or withholding of PRN. It does mention psychological and physical harm, but only in sustained terms defined as for a continuous period of at least 28 days. Regulation 19, fit and proper persons employed. The CQC states they will refuse registration of any organisation that cannot satisfy them of compliance with this regulation. This section seems to be focused on the employer's and CQC's responsibility to ensure staff are qualified. The only account it takes of the patient or client is in stating providers should respond without delay to concerns about a person's fitness or ability to carry out their duties. This includes responding immediately if there is an imminent risk to people working in and using the service. The response taken to concerns about a person's fitness should be fair to the person and follow the correct procedures. So, whilst it covers an expectation on Signet to comply with CQC registration and satisfying CQC of appropriate checks and processes, it doesn't offer rights of the client to conduct their own checks of an employee's suitability. Regulation 9, person-centred care. This deals with making reasonable adjustments and ensuring the individual is involved in their care and treatment. Where the individual lacks capacity, that decisions are made in the best interest, evidencing a best interest process is followed. The closest I've experienced to this relating to the ID badge point was to argue for ward staff to wear larger, clearer name badges bearing first names to minimise a client's distress at being overwhelmed with the number of names and faces to adjust to on a ward. I'm unaware of any regulations that I've already come across to provide specifics around what should be included on a name badge, but I did find the below as a point of interest. It's an individual's attempt to push through a freedom of information request around nursing identification with the Nursing and Midwifery Council before a procedure to be able to give informed consent for the procedure, wanting to add the addition of assuring competence of the staff involved. And he's posted a link to a what do they know freedom of information request, then going on to say the salient quote from the NMC regarding what information should be shared on request is the NMC does not place a requirement on what a nurse is required to disclose to a patient in the circumstances you have described, but there should be no impediment to a patient or service user being given such information. So he goes on to say, I found individual trusts, whoa, that's a bit too big. Got to do this before my battery runs out as well because I haven't got a charger in my room. I've found individual trusts stating expectations for staff to wear issued name badges clearly in their guidance, but no overarching enforcing regulations that give clarity to an expectation of accountable ID badges to be worn, and I suspect it would come down to Signet policy. I'm yet to find their position around name badges. There may be an argument that deliberate obscuring of a surname is an impediment to accessing a nurse's information. It would seem hard to suggest the obscuring of the surname to be accidental, but if the wearing of name badges is not enforced in policy, it may be difficult to make much of this point. Certainly, from CQC lists of prosecutable offences within their regulations, it would seem unlikely they would move to prosecute. Going forwards, you were clear that you felt confident in pursuing the complaint yourself. My only overall and remit would be to support you around the Mental Health Act. If this is an area you would like support with, please let me know. So I wrote back to Alan and I wrote to the CQC. You don't really need to see what I said in the CQC email because I was just sort of referring that he hadn't done a very good job, and I'm not going to read that because my battery's going to run out and I want to get this video online ASAP. You can email me or just read what it says there if you've got good enough clarity from the recording of this video. That's going to focus on my email back to him because that kind of put things into a bit more of a clear, constructive context. Effectively, what Alan said is very different from what the CQC says, and I didn't feel that he's done a fair, proportionate, rational or reasonable interpretation of the CQC regulations in his actions in order to defend me and support my rights, which should be inalienable regarding this matter. My email to Alan reads, Hi Alan, thanks for your assistance with my grievance. Your findings seem to quite starkly contradict the views expressed to me over the phone when liaising with CQC directly. I'm going to ask them for enhanced confirmation of their official opinion, but in the meantime, here's some results from my own research with reference to the CQC regulations. Again, Gemini AI, but it does seem to reflect what was expressed to me by CQC themselves, and details are somewhat different, and I would proffer a more broadly accurate interpretation of the regulations, which would leave Signet Q-Stoke at detriment, rather than your own findings, which would present the nurse in question to have been nominally at fault. Here's the AI question with the corresponding answer. So I said, I'm detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act at Signet Q-Stoke. I recently asked a registered mental health nurse to display their photocard ID. After initially refusing, the nurse then produced an ID badge which had been defaced, obscuring the surname, which made the ID effectively useless. I've been informed that CQC regulations 9, 19 and 20 detail this as being a breach of regulation. Could you please explain exactly which sections of these regulations would be breached by a nurse using a defaced ID badge? This was what I asked to Gemini AI on my Samsung S24 FE that I bought on the 1st of November from 3 store on leave from this hospital. The AI results are very different from Alan's interpretation. It says, it's understandable that you're seeking clarity on how a defaced ID badge might breach CQC regulations, especially within the context of your detention under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act. Here's a breakdown of how those regulations could apply. Regulation 19, fit and proper persons employed. This regulation emphasises the importance of providers ensuring that their staff are suitable for their roles. A defaced ID badge could raise concerns about whether the provider has adequate procedures in place to verify the identity of their staff, maintain proper records and ensure transparency. If a nurse is intentionally obscuring their identity, could bring into question their fitness to perform duties. Regulation 20, which is the duty of candour, this regulation requires providers to be open and transparent with people using their services. A defaced ID badge can be seen as a lack of transparency, as it prevents you from clearly identifying the person providing your care. Within a mental health setting, trust and transparency are paramount. Obscuring a surname could erode that trust. It then went on to say in my email, quoting AI, the duty of candour is about being open and honest when things go wrong, but also about general openness. A defaced ID badge prevents that general openness. Regulation 9, person-centred care. Regulation 9 is about person-centred care and ensuring that people are treated with dignity and respect. By obscuring their name, the nurse is preventing you from knowing who they are. This can be seen as a lack of respect. Also, by refusing to show their ID initially, this could also be seen as not providing person-centred care. Key considerations. Your right to know the identity of those providing your care is important for your safety and well-being. The CQC places a strong emphasis on transparency and accountability. It's important to remember that within a mental health setting, trust is a vital part of care. So in summary, I would surmise that one, the incident presents as a proportionate breach of Regulation 19, as a nurse with a defaced ID is not fit and proper within the scope of its terms and is without question displaying an incontrovertible lack of transparency. The nurse is failing to adhere to the duty of candour, therefore breaching Regulation 20 on the grounds that they're being neither open nor transparent, or being trustworthy or honest, as they were not identifiable to the service user. I got a bit confused when I was writing this. The next paragraph's sort of dog shit, but so the nurse was acting, I should say, with complete absence of dignity, respect, and without due regard for my safety and well-being, stipulated resoundingly in the purport of Regulation 9, as the AI is highlighted above, which relates to person-centred care. I said I'd welcome your interpretation of my contextual analysis of Regulations 9, 19 and 20 as detailed using the numbered points corresponding to each regulation above, and any guidance you could provide on how to progress with litigation or enforcement via the NMC, CQC or indeed the police, determining whether defacing a nurse's ID and covering their name constitutes a criminal offence depends on several factors, including if the intent is to deceive, such as falsely representing oneself as a registered nurse, which can lead to criminal charges. The Nursing and Midwifery Council emphasises that misrepresentation or registration of qualifications is a serious offence. The NMC's prosecution policy highlights that with intent to deceive is a key factor in determining whether an offence has occurred. If you could recommend a solicitor in order that I can progress with litigation or prosecution, that would be greatly appreciated. And then there's just regards. So, in the interest of my battery not running out, I'm going to wind this video up. But if anybody can recommend me a solicitor, tell me the law from the CQC or the NMC about nurses having to show you their photo card ID that they all wear every single day that they're on shift, and every single one of them has, and how it is that failing to provide that ID is not a breach of some sort of regulation. Please get in touch with me. You can phone me on 07576 713 026 or email at brodymcleodtemp@gmail.com. My battery is going to run out and I want to get this video online. I've only got 10 minutes to do that. But thank you, and with love, I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.